Hello and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening to Helen McGrath, Head of Public Affairs, with your essential roundup of local government legal news. Last week, the Health and Social Care Bill finished its report stage in Parliament and is now working its way through the House of Lords. If the bill reaches royal assent, it will see the existing integrated care systems placed on statutory footing in April 2022 and the NHS split into multiple parts, with 42 boards making decisions regarding local practice funding and services. The ICS will have two statutory components, integrated care boards and integrated care partnerships. If the bill passes, the ICBS will take over the commissioning of GP services when the clinical commissioning groups are disbanded, taking accountability for NHS spend and performance. Meanwhile, a column by Matthew Taylor, Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation, warns that the Health and Care Bill gives, quote, significant unchecked and burdensome powers to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care to intervene at any stage in decisions about changes to local healthcare services. The NHS Confederation, the LGA, and the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny have all recommended amendments to the bill. Taken from the LGA bulletin, last week saw an all question in the House of Lords on the Levelling Up white paper moved by Lord Young of Cookham. Ahead of the LGA's briefing that the government should work with local government to set out a national devolution baseline for England, for the white paper to be utilised as an opportunity to reset the relationship between national and local government and the need to defragment local government funding. LGA's Vice President, Baroness Thornhill, called for an end to the fragmented local government finance system. Closing the debate, Lord Greenhalgh confirmed that the government aims to publish the white paper by the end of the year, and outlined the work of the new Levelling Up task force under the leadership of Andy Haldane. Two Lord reports published on the balance of power between Parliament and the Executive are now on the UK Parliament website. Published by the Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee, entitled Government by Dictacat, a call to return to power to Parliament, and the Delegated Powers and Regulatory Reform Committee, entitled Democracy Denied, the urgent need to rebalance power between Parliament and the Executive. Each contains a stark warning about a shift in power towards the Executive. Both reports express considerable alarm and criticise the increasing tendency of all governments in recent years to adopt procedures which effectively bypass Parliament's role in the legislative process by enabling ministers to make the detailed laws which govern every aspect of how we live and how businesses and other organisations operate. Both reports condemn a growing trend made worse by the twin challenges of Brexit and the COVID-19 pandemic in using skeleton bills to give ministers sweeping powers to make secondary legislation that can be passed with little or no consideration by the two houses. The DPRRC report also draws attention to the fact that, on occasion, these minister-made laws are disguised as protocols, directions or guidance, which have legislative effect but are often made without parliamentary oversight. Reported in The Guardian and elsewhere, the Home Secretary Priti Patel is said to be under pressure from Downing Street Conservative MPs to tackle the issue of channel crossings, with councils across the UK being told to care for unaccompanied children under new rules put forward by the Home Office. Guardian reports that the decision to impose new rules on councils follows complaints from Kent County Council and others in the south of England. They are being overwhelmed by a growing number of children entering the country, and that the transfer mechanism for children, which has been voluntary since 2016, is receiving repeated calls to mandate the scheme to ease the impact on local authorities on the south coast that care for the majority of the unaccompanied children. It is reported that the Home Office will send social services departments a letter giving them 2 weeks to present reasons as to why they should not accept unaccompanied children. And finally, in the planning newsletter from the Chief Planner at the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, Joanna Averley is now inviting expressions of interest from local authorities to join the adoption and development of new software to streamline planning applications, which she says can benefit both applicants and decision makers. It also references new guidance on paragraph 22 of the National Planning Policy Framework, which states strategic policy should look ahead over a minimum 15-year period from adoption to anticipate and respond to long-term requirements and opportunities, such as those arising from major improvements in infrastructure. Where larger scale developments such as new settlements or significant extensions to existing villages and towns form part of the strategy for the area, policy should be set within a vision that looks further ahead, at least 30 years, to take into account the likely timescale for delivery. That's it from me. You can read all the articles mentioned in this week's podcast and many more by going to Bulletin 45, available now on the LLG website. Have a good week.